My pa says that grades aren't everything now. It's the learning that counts. Even eggs get grades.
Melissa Gilbert has been a household name for decades, remembered best as the sweet farm girl Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. For years, fans saw her as the picture of innocence and happiness. But behind that cheerful image, Melissa lived through struggles that most people never imagined. At 61 years old, she has finally opened up about her real life, and what she shared shocked many. From adoption at birth, family tragedies, and early fame, to heartbreak in love, battles with addiction, and crushing financial problems, her story is both heartbreaking and inspiring. What makes her story so powerful is that it reflects not just the rise of a Hollywood star, but also the hidden pain that fame often conceals. For decades, Melissa smiled on screen, but inside she was fighting private battles that few people could guess. Now, as she shares her truth, people are beginning to understand the depth of her journey and how she managed to survive against the odds. Melissa's story began with drama even before she was born. She came into the world on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles, to parents who were not in a stable situation. Her biological father was a stock car racer and musician named David Darlington, and her mother, Kathy Wood, worked as a dancer. At the time, both of them were married to other people and already had 3 children each. When they met, they fell in love and ran away together, leaving behind their old lives. Melissa was conceived during a motorcycle trip in the desert, and after she was born, her overwhelmed parents realized they could not take care of another baby. The very next day, they gave her up for adoption. Within 24 hours, she was adopted by Paul Gilbert, a former circus aerialist and military pilot, and his wife, Barbara Crane, who came from a family connected to show business. This adoption placed Melissa in a world that would eventually shape her destiny. She was raised in a home surrounded by entertainment, and her brother Jonathan, also adopted, would later act alongside her. But even with this seemingly lucky start, tragedy came early when her adoptive father died when she was just 11. Something she would only later learn was suicide. Melissa's career started when she was still a toddler. She appeared in commercials and small roles that gave her confidence in front of the camera. Her big break came when she auditioned for the role of Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. Out of more than 500 girls, she stood out for her natural look: overalls, pigtails, and dirt on her face. Michael Landon, the show's creator and star, immediately felt she was perfect for the role. This show became a massive hit, running from 1974 to 1983, and Melissa grew up on screen. She won awards, fans adored her, and she became one of the most recognized child stars in America. But behind the scenes, life was not as perfect as it looked. The show tackled dark themes like death, addiction, and violence, and the cast itself was not free from struggles. Melissa developed a close bond with Michael Landon, who became a father figure to her after her real father's death. But even he had his flaws. He was often drinking on set, something that influenced her in ways she didn't realize until years later. This mixture of fame, responsibility, and exposure to adult behavior would shape many of her future struggles. As Melissa moved into her teenage years, she continued to take on powerful roles that proved she was more than just a child actress. She played Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker and Anne Frank in a major television adaptation, both roles that demanded emotional depth and physical commitment. These performances showed the world that she had serious acting talent, far beyond her Prairie Girl image. Yet while her career was rising, her personal life became more complicated. She fell in love with Rob Lowe when they were both teenagers, and their relationship lasted 6 years. It was filled with glamorous moments, parties, and the excitement of young Hollywood, but it was also full of heartbreak, jealousy, and betrayal. Rob's fame and constant attention from other women created strains, and Melissa later discovered he had cheated on her, including with actress Demi Moore. When she became pregnant during their engagement, Rob admitted he wasn't ready to be a father, and the relationship collapsed. She lost both her fiancé and the baby, leaving her devastated. This was just the beginning of the painful relationships that would follow. Melissa married actor Bo Brinkman in 1988, and they had a son named Dakota. But the marriage quickly turned toxic. Brinkman cheated on her, including with Melissa's former Little House co-star Shannon Doherty, and his drinking led to violent fights. At one point, Melissa said he threatened to kill her. The marriage ended in 1994, leaving her scarred by betrayal and trauma. She later married actor Bruce Boxleitner in 1995, and while their relationship lasted longer, it also ended in divorce in 2011. During this time, Melissa's struggles with alcohol began to take control of her life. She admitted to drinking 2 bottles of wine every night, a dangerous habit that nearly destroyed her. The breaking point came when she passed out in her dog's bed during a dinner party after drinking heavily. That shocking moment, combined with pleas from her son, finally pushed her to seek help through Alcoholics Anonymous. But while she was working on her sobriety, financial problems hit hard. She owed nearly $500,000 in taxes due to a mix of career setbacks, the recession, and personal struggles. It was a period where everything seemed to fall apart at once: health, money, marriage, and reputation. Despite these hardships, Melissa never gave up. She continued to work, taking roles in television and even voice acting. She also stepped into leadership when she became president of the Screen Actors Guild from 2001 to 2005. In this role, she fought for child actor protections, healthcare improvements, and against jobs being sent overseas. It was a stressful and controversial time, but it showed her determination to stand up for others. Later, she even attempted to enter politics by running for Congress in Michigan. While her campaign gained attention, health issues forced her to withdraw. Years of back injuries, including accidents and falls, had left her with multiple spinal surgeries, chronic pain, and other medical challenges. In addition, she struggled with misophonia, a condition where certain everyday sounds trigger intense anger or stress. All of these health struggles added another layer to her already difficult life. Yet, instead of letting them defeat her, she chose to make changes. She removed her breast implants, stopped using Botox and hair dye, and decided to embrace her natural self. She left Hollywood behind and moved to a quiet farm with her husband Timothy Bus, where she found peace and a simpler life. At 61, Melissa Gilbert has finally reached a place of acceptance and strength. She has admitted openly to her past struggles, her addiction, her debt, her broken relationships, and the mistakes she made. But instead of hiding them, she shares them to show others that even people who seem perfect on the outside are often fighting unseen battles. Today, she focuses on living authentically. She co-founded Modern Prairie, a lifestyle company aimed at empowering women over 50. She embraces her age, her gray hair, and her freedom from Hollywood's pressure to stay young. Her marriage to Timothy Busfield is built on stability and shared values, and together they live a life far away from the glitter of fame. What makes her story so inspiring is not just her success as a child star, but her resilience as a woman who faced addiction, betrayal, financial ruin, and health struggles and still found her way back to peace. Melissa Gilbert's life is proof that no matter how broken things may seem, it is always possible to rebuild, to heal, and to find happiness again. Although Melissa's adoption seemed like a fairy tale start, her childhood was far from simple. Her adoptive father, Paul Gilbert, was a fascinating figure who lived an adventurous life as both a military pilot and a circus performer. But he carried deep emotional struggles. When Melissa was just 11 years old, he died suddenly. At first, Melissa was told it was a stroke, but years later she discovered the painful truth that he had died by suicide. The revelation crushed her, because it explained many of the feelings she had carried since childhood, such as abandonment and confusion. Losing her father at such a young age shaped how she looked at relationships and trust. Her adoptive mother remarried, and Melissa's home environment became tense and unstable. She grew up faster than most children, and while she was surrounded by the excitement of Hollywood, inside she carried loneliness and the desire to belong. This longing would later fuel her relationships and struggles with self. For Melissa, the farm girl role on television was almost a reflection of the family life she wished she truly had. When Little House on the Prairie became a cultural phenomenon, Melissa Gilbert became one of the most recognizable faces in American television. The show was not just entertainment, it offered families across the country lessons about hard work, kindness, and resilience. Fans saw her grow from a wide-eyed girl into a young woman, and millions felt connected to her as if she were part of their own family. But the flip side of this fame was the loss of privacy and normal childhood experiences. While other kids went to school dances and hung out at malls, Melissa spent her days memorizing scripts, filming emotional scenes, and traveling for promotional events. She carried the weight of responsibility, always expected to perform perfectly because the show depended on her. Behind the cameras, Melissa sometimes felt like she was living to live's Mary Ingalls, the beloved character, and Melissa, the confused young girl dealing with grief, pressures, and insecurities. This dual life made it hard for her to truly discover who she was outside of acting, a struggle that followed her for decades. Michael Landon played a huge role in Melissa's life, not just as her co-star, but as a father figure. After her adoptive father's death, Landon stepped in with support, guidance, and affection. She often described him as her protector during those fragile years. However, as she grew older, she began to notice his flaws, his heavy drinking, smoking, and the marital troubles that later ended his first marriage. Melissa admired him deeply, but also felt conflicted about some of his choices. When she learned about his affair with a crew member, it shattered her image of him as the perfect family man. Yet despite the disappointment, Melissa always credited him for shaping her acting career and teaching her valuable lessons about storytelling and professionalism. Landon's death from cancer in 1991 was another devastating blow. Melissa confessed that she never truly got to express all her gratitude and complicated feelings before he passed. This relationship was one of the most defining of her life, filled with love, loss, and lessons about human imperfection. As Melissa transitioned from child star to teenager, the world around her shifted dramatically. Hollywood in the 1980s was a place filled with temptation, parties, drugs, and the constant pressure to remain beautiful and desirable. For a girl who had spent most of her life being adored for her innocence, the sudden expectation to be glamorous and grown-up was overwhelming. Melissa admitted she often felt like she was faking adulthood because she had never lived a normal teenage life. She also faced the insecurities that come with Hollywood's obsession with looks. Surrounded by actresses who seemed perfect, she struggled with her body image and this vulnerability made her more likely to fall into destructive relationships. Searching for validation and stability she couldn't find at home. Her long romance with Rob Lowe reflected this need for belonging. Although it gave her moments of joy and passion, it also brought pain and betrayal. When that relationship ended, Melissa was left questioning her worth, both as a woman and as a person. Melissa's marriage to actor Beau Brinkman began with passion but quickly spiraled into chaos. At first, she believed she had finally found a partner who could understand her world and provide the love she longed for. They welcomed their son Dakota, and for a brief period, Melissa felt hopeful about building a stable family. But Beau's infidelity and substance abuse turned the marriage into a nightmare. Arguments became violent, and Melissa lived in constant fear. She later admitted that she often excused his behavior because she didn't want to feel abandoned again, just as she had as a child. The emotional scars from this marriage lasted long after the divorce. It took years for her to rebuild her confidence and trust in relationships. For Melissa, this marriage became a turning point where she realized that love without respect and safety is destructive. It also forced her to face the painful cycle of repeating patterns from her past, seeking love in places where it could never truly be. Found her second marriage to actor Bruce Boxleitner seemed at first like a dream come true. Bruce was well known for his roles in Tron and Scarecrow and Mrs. King, and the couple became one of Hollywood's admired pairs. They had a son together, Michael, named after her beloved mentor, Michael Landon. Yet behind the smiles and red carpet appearances, their relationship was marked by tension and disappointment. Bruce struggled with commitment, and Melissa often felt she was carrying the emotional weight of the marriage alone. Their on and off relationship created instability for years before they finally divorced in 2011. Melissa admitted that the breakup was one of the hardest experiences of her life, not just because of the emotional pain but because she had to face being a single mother again. At the same time, her drinking problem was worsening, and her financial troubles were piling up. This period was one of her lowest points, a storm where every part of her life, love, money, health, and family seemed to collapse at once. Melissa has been brutally honest about her battle with alcoholism. She described how her drinking went from casual glasses of wine to finishing entire bottles each night. At first, she told herself it was just a way to relax, but soon it became her escape from pain and stress. The addiction took a toll on her body, her relationships, and her career. One of her darkest moments came when she passed out in her dog's bed during a dinner party. She later said the shame she felt that night, along with her son's pleas for her to stop, finally pushed her to admit she had a problem. Joining Alcoholics Anonymous was not easy, but it gave her the support system she desperately needed. Sobriety became a daily choice, and Melissa often spoke about how recovery is not a one-time event but a lifelong journey. By sharing her struggles openly, she has given hope to others facing similar battles, showing that even someone who seemed to have everything can fall and rise again. While battling addiction, Melissa faced another major challenge: financial collapse. Despite decades in Hollywood, she found herself owing nearly $500,000 in back taxes. The reasons were a mix of poor financial management, declining roles, and the effects of the 2008 recession. For a public figure, this was deeply humiliating. She admitted she felt like a failure, unable to provide for her family despite her fame. At one point, she had to sell her home and drastically change her lifestyle. Yet this hardship also taught her valuable lessons about humility and responsibility. Instead of hiding, Melissa confronted the problem head-on, arranging repayment plans and cutting expenses. Looking back, she said the experience was both humiliating and liberating. It stripped away the illusions of wealth and forced her to focus on what truly mattered: health, family, and authenticity. This financial low point, combined with her personal struggles, became a catalyst for her decision to leave Hollywood and start fresh.